everything set up on the mill here for milling our radius on each side. Kind of a simple setup that I think and hope will work. I've got my two long 3/4 inch wide parallels under there, and then clamped down by 4 toe clamps. I also put a bar across the near edge here with the shim underneath the center of it, so that as these clamp down and push, it'll continue pushing on the center. It's pretty darn solid, so I think we'll be okay with this setup. Started getting it dialed in with my button back plunge indicator. Stare at 196, I think. So we're fairly close. Normally I wouldn't hit on the side of the part where the indicator is reading, but I think there's so much mass there that's pretty dampened by the time it gets to the indicator. I'm not that worried about it. Obviously going to be kind of noisy since the end is not supported. But once it gets in over the vise, it should sound a lot nicer. Nice pretty blue chips. That looks all right. This is the back end of the lathe if the camera were behind it. And here's our part with our little radii and cut to length. Fairly close fit, but not tight. And that should do it. I think this is going to be done with this step, at this stage anyway. So now our holes line up with the wiper holders, and they're about flush with the top of the guard. So that should work. The next thing we need to do is make a couple of little blocks and drill and tap them, and then weld onto the underside of our guard. our 120-degree spot drill, and then a number 25 drill for a 1024 tap. So that was a bit of a failure, trying to, just not thinking, putting that hole in the center. So a little bit of a screw up, but no big deal. The way I determined to get, or got close anyway, is just with a transfer punch, and then got it in there to where it was just touching the part, and then just moved the, ran the part back and forth across it, make a little line, and I went and got some gauge blocks after measuring that and found the right combination. So we are 229 up from the bottom. So that's what we're going to do on the mill. I went ahead and made a new block. This one was totally salvageable. Could have just drilled from the other side or drilled from one end because it is a cube, but I don't know. I don't like messing up. I think we're pretty much ready to get these little blocks secured to this thing permanently. So first things first, get them clean, and then I think what we'll do is attach them to the front plate here with their screws. Get them tacked in place, and then remove this guy while we weld them. In order to figure out how tall our Teflon pieces need to be, I figured it would be smart to go ahead and try installing this. And then we can take some measurements. Okay. All right, slide that guy on. Meets up pretty well. And then just stick one of these dudes on there. It's actually not bad at all, reaching all the way to the back. And if I just give myself a little bit of a gap, I can make sure I'm starting my threads in the right spot. Okay, there's the heat affected zone for this guy's little mounting bosses. And then our original wiper carrier, and put the wiper on there just for kicks. There we go, that's kind of what it's going to look like. Obviously got some more work to do, but in general, the concept is on display. Feels a lot heavier than I would expect it to, so I think there's some rubbing going on. I think we've got plenty of clearance on the sides here, but what it may be is that one of my replacement wiper carriers is rubbing on the top of this, or somewhere else is rubbing. It may be kind of pinching on that wiper carrier and the wiper material. So we'll take the end off and then take some measurements and make sure there's nothing dramatically off, and then we can start prepping this thing to kind of finish it. All right, to quote Wes, there's your problem, lady. So I can't get a 2thou shim underneath right here. So this backup piece probably needs to be relieved on this center section here. It never needed to be all that close. I just measured it, or made it matching the wiper carrier, the original. So once we took this guy out, this corner dipped down and I can't get a 2thou feeler gauge under there. I can kind of drag it through, but it's not really as comfortable as I would like it. This side, yeah, there's little chip under there, but otherwise this side is holding up. I guess probably get some gauge blocks in here, or adjustable parallels, probably the smarter, easier way to do this. And use that to just jack this up just a tiny bit, and then that'll tell me what my full height needs to be for the Teflon. We'll stare at 154B. So if we get that guy in about like, oops, actually, it's not where we want to measure from. On this side, we should have plenty of clearance on both sides. Yeah, that should work. Tighten that guy up, and then that will tell us how tall our nut essentially has to be on the bottom of the plate, and then our piece of Teflon screwing into that. So our goal is 686 for the total height. So I guess we've got to decide how we want to divide that up between the steel on the bottom of the guard and the Teflon. But we've just got a 1-inch piece of cold rolled 1018. Seemed to work okay. I don't know if I have clearance to use this tool here or not. Oh, it's gonna be close. Oh, I can do it. Oops. Well, at least it didn't fall in the chip pan. So due to some technical issues with the camera, unfortunately my mic kind of crapped out on me for, I don't know, a lot of this video actually. A lot of the clips are just not usable. So this has been an interesting project, not something I've really done before. Lots of different steps in here, getting the geometry correct and getting our dimensions correct and getting things to fit so that the imperfect machine, those surfaces all look good with our new part. And I think we were mostly successful with that. So here are the original Monarch wiper guards, cast iron. It's been chrome plated. This is the backup piece for those Monarch guards. So these guys screw directly onto this piece. Came out okay. So I made some preventable mistakes that is just the kind of the nature of the beast when you're designing while you're making it. And so the thing that irritates me the most, even though it's not really an issue, is that this is just not as elegant as it could be. You know, there's no reason for these to be two pieces, but what happened was I measured for and installed these two. So those are the lugs to attach this guy in its position, and wasn't paying attention to where our glides needed to be. And it turned out that they were exactly in line. So I really, if I could go back, I would definitely make that change and make this one piece. That would just be a lot nicer. Those are our Teflon glides. Those are at a precise height to put this guard in the right position relative to the ways of the cross slide. And in order to figure that out, we had to leave this a little bit short. So there was a pretty hefty gap, anywhere from 60 to 90 thousandths, depending on where you measured. And what I did was built that up with silicon bronze with the TIG welder. And after we got this thing all built up, put it on the milling machine at an angle. So it took a very small shim, an 18 thousandths shim on one end, to cut more from this end and less from this end. So we have about a 0.09 degree angle, but it worked out so that this is straight parallel to the ways of the machine. Obviously did that on both sides. And my thinking there, although not strictly necessary, was to close the gap. And also, if something fails, I don't exactly know what might fail, but if this thing ends up riding on the ways for any length of time, this silicon bronze is going to be a lot more gentle on that cast iron compared to the steel that the rest of this part is made out of. In general, I think it's going to be just perfect in terms of its function. So that gives you a bit of an idea of what I've been looking at. We can see the end of our part. There's just a tiny little gap on either side from the bottom of the new guard and the ways. And then you can see our two mounting lugs that the backup for the wiper carrier will go on. And then you can just see back here where one of the Teflon glides is hanging out. So those are riding on here and keeping our distance, above the ways on this thing. And then our two original covers. If you're curious, so that gap underneath here is 10 thousandths. So an 11 thou feeler gauge will not go under there, but a 10 will. And the same for the other side. So there's minimal room for chips and grit to get underneath here and sit on the ways. But there is enough room that this thing's not going to rub on the ways under any normal circumstances. And this thing's pretty, it sounds hollow underneath, but it is pretty solid. I would imagine it weighs over 10 pounds, so it's not a lightweight thing that is going to get bent easily, or like I think I said in the previous video, when chips are hitting it, it's not going to sound like raining on a tin roof. Turned out pretty well, I think. Fortunately, there's no noticeable difference in the weight of the cross slide. So it seems to take exactly the same amount of force to get this thing in motion than it did before, or when that thing is off. So that's definitely good. I don't want to make this thing harder to use just for that added protection. But I think the weight of this, 10, 12, 14 pounds, whatever it is dwarfed by the rest of the mass that's on here. So nothing too serious to worry about. Coming very soon, we'll have a very interesting video, I think, in taking the compound off the lathe and then taking the cross slide off the lathe. That'll be a bit of an adventure just because that powered compound has a lot of gearing and bearings in it that I am not familiar with, and I've never seen the insides of one of these on a video or anywhere other than Monarch's blueprint, which I will show in the next video as well. So we'll have to see how it goes and be very careful and take lots of notes and video to make sure we can get it back together the way that it is intended to go back together. And while we're doing it, we'll check for anything that needs to be replaced or reworked or improved, and otherwise enjoy our new cross slide guard. So I'm very happy with that improvement to the lathe. I think it is a performance improvement and certainly a longevity improvement for this machine, and I think it'll make it look a little nicer too once that's painted to match, and keep all the way surfaces clean and clear of chips and keep that oil doing its job. So thanks very much for watching this video, guys. I will be back with more from here in the garage. Thanks a lot.